Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Joshua. We're in Joshua chapter 5. Today we start reading at verse 2. Now, the Israelites have crossed the Jordan River. They are encamped in the land of Canaan, in the promised land. The first camp is in Gilgal, which will be their base of operations for some time to come as they proceed with the conquest of the land. And actually, for a number of years in Israelite history, we will find Gilgal mentioned again and again as an important center and rallying point for the children of Israel. But right now they're camped there. They're in the promised land for the first time. They're ready to begin to take possession, to take control of the land of promise that God has for them. But there's a couple of things that need to be done before the conquest can begin. The first thing has to do with circumcision. So let's read about that. We're going to read verses 2 through verses 9. Now at that time, the Lord said to Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites again." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites. Now this is why he did so. All those who came up out of Egypt, that is, all the men of military age, had died in the wilderness on the way after leaving Egypt. All the people that came out had been circumcised, but all the people born in the wilderness during the journey from Egypt had not. The Israelites had moved about in the wilderness for 40 years, until all the men who were of military age when they left Egypt had died, since they had not obeyed the Lord. For the Lord had sworn to them that they would not see the land He had solemnly promised that their ancestors would have, a land that flows with milk and honey. So He raised up their sons in their place, and these were the ones Joshua circumcised. They were still uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. And after the whole nation had been circumcised, they remained where they were in the camp until they were healed. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you." So the place has been called Gilgal to this day. The first thing that had to be done was that the men among the Israelites needed to be circumcised. Now, of course, we know that circumcision is the mark of the covenant. It goes way back to the days of Abraham. God had given them circumcision as a covenant sign that they were the people of God. Now, the generation of men that had come out of Egypt, out of slavery in Egypt, they had been circumcised. But you remember, they could not enter the land. Because when they were first 40 years ago, when they were about to enter, they had believed the report of the 10 spies that said, "We cannot take the land." They lacked faith. Of the 12 spies who went into the land, only Joshua and Caleb said, "We could take it." And so they were the only two from that first generation who entered the promised land. But God has said to them, "Because you did not believe, you will die in the wilderness. Your children will go into the land." And now it is that second generation, the children who have now grown up, who have crossed the Jordan River and taken possession of the land. The only two from the original generation were Joshua and Caleb. But they had not been circumcised. It seems that they neglected the covenant sign of circumcision during the wilderness wanderings. But listen, God says, if you're going to be my people, if you're going to take possession of the promised land that I first made to Abraham so long ago, you must bear in your bodies the sign of the covenant, the circumcision. And so the first thing we must do is obey the requirements of the covenant. And so all the men in the Israelite camp were circumcised. The mark of the covenant was placed upon them because they are the covenant people of God. Listen, if we're going to be God's people, we must be faithful and obedient to His commands. And that command of circumcision was paramount at this point. They must follow the requirement given to Abraham so long ago, coming down through the years. You are the people of the covenant, and the sign of the covenant, which is what circumcision is, must be upon you. It's only the covenant people of God who can take possession of the promised land. They must show their faithfulness to God by following the requirements, and that is to be circumcised. So Joshua says, first thing we're going to do, we're in the promised land now, but we've got to be people of the covenant. We've got to follow the requirements of the covenant. We will be circumcised, and they were. they receive the sign of the covenant, showing themselves to be the people of God. They're making themselves ready to take the land that God has given them. Notice it says, after the circumcised, God says to them, today I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. The last vestige of that reproach of Egypt, that land of slavery, is now gone. You're in the promised land. The mark of the covenant is on you. You're my people. The last vestige of the reproach of Egypt has now been rolled away by God's grace. They are the covenant people of God. They are in the promised land, and they are now ready to take possession of this land of promise. Now, there's also one more thing to be done. That is a celebration of worship. Now they're ready to worship powerfully in the new land. We'll look at that tomorrow because they're about to celebrate the Passover for the first time in the promised land. So we'll look at that tomorrow in our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Joshua.